Hey Alok.
Ranjan, good to meet you.
How are you, Alok?
I'm doing wonderful. It's a pleasure to see you today.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, and looking forward for an interesting conversation. And before we start the conversation, I have a small introduction for my audience, my listeners of this podcast. Our master for the day is the founder plus CEO of Uplift Millions, a global coaching company for results driven, impact led leaders and entrepreneurs who value people, planet, and profit. Is a Wall Street Journal best-selling author of Maximum Impact Potential, a TEDx speaker, and a Stevie Award winner. He was also featured in Forbes with Tony Robbins. He was on the new reality series 4 Days to Save the World and has built four social enterprises spanning clean tech to sustainable fashion. He loves ice cream and is the proud partner to Caitlin and father of Sequoia. I'm super excited to have this magnificent conversation with the master of the day, Alok Appadurai. Alok, welcome to Moments with Masters. First of all,
It's
thank you so much. Thank you so much for accepting my invitation and for the wonderful conversations that we have been having.
Ranjan, it's such an honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Alok. So, yes, you know, in my conversations with masters in my show, it's not like I come prepared with a set of questions and to draw the answers to those questions. But on a broader, uh, you know, on a larger level, I see that there are two sides of the story. One is the story that you have created, and two is the person who created the story
Mm,
is is about you.
mm.
So I would love to have this conversation about both. So
Wonderful.
first I would love to listen from you, your story in your own words.
Well, what a journey it's been. Been a lifelong feeler. My heart has led my life, and as you mentioned, dedicated my life to making a positive impact into the world and touching other people's lives. But I'd say a couple pinnacle moments that I'd like to share with everyone is 2009. I was with my mother in the bathroom of her home when she took her final breath, and I carried her body out across the hallway into the bedroom and held my mother until the paramedics would come. And this moment forever changed my life. And so when people ask me who I am, I say I am the result of the seven generations that came before me. I'm the ripple effect seven generations out into the future. I am the energy that changes the world. It's because of her. And she planted that into me from a very young age that we give of ourselves. I watched her throughout her entire life to be giving to other people, contributing her time, her energy, her efforts to other people. And so my story would be incomplete without sharing this pivotal moment in my life. And then I'd say the second one that may be valuable for your audience is around losing everything in 2016. And I had dedicated my life to this path of creating impact. And then I found myself with nothing, completely stripped of everything. And it was in that moment in 2016 where, they say you have to have a coming to God moment or whatnot. Because I was the guy that was working long hours, 70-hour work weeks, pouring everything, every penny I had into creating impact. And there I was in a one-room studio with no car, barely able to put food on the table. And it allowed me the grace, because it didn't feel like grace back then, but it allowed me the grace to really learn how to ask for help. And so that's the big piece that I'd like to share with everyone is the moment that we can shed our insecurities or our worries enough that we can raise our hand and have the courage to say, I have the heart, I have the work ethic, I have the commitment, I have the dedication, but I need some guidance. And that changed my life forever.
Beautiful, Alok. I really connect with the story because, as I shared with you earlier, also, it was the same thing that shifted my life. I lost my mom last year, and it was a tough phase. And each day, even today, each day when I wake up to that space which in which my mom existed, and the way she created this
Mm,
family, the way she created who I am today, the way she created who my kids are being today,
mm,
the way she planted the culture, the way this all might not have been visible then, but then, each day is an awakening to who she had been throughout her
mm,
life for who I am today
mm.
in all the toughest of the moments. I still remember it was about 15 years ago when we went for a month almost without food, and
Mm.
we were literally living on liquids, and until somebody found out, and they came with about 2 months of grocery for us.
Yeah.
And but then, if when I reflect back today, I see that even during those days, my mom used to make us feel as if we had everything, and that was the kind of love and affection with even
Woo.
little food on the table.
Mm.
And now we realize, oh my God, if I mean that's the possibility of who you can be as a person in your life. So I thank you for sharing your story. Yes,
Mm.
it means a lot. Alok,
Thank you.
Alok, yeah. Alok, when you said that, that shifted, but I know that I have over 2 decades of story. You have over 2 decades of story. But when somebody looks at you, you know, you appear to be a very ambitious,
Mm.
achievement-oriented person.
Mm. Mm.
How did you know what was life then, and who are you being now
Mm.
as a person?
Yeah, it's funny. Thank you for this reflection. Everyone sees me as very achievement oriented. It's funny because I laugh with that sentence because I don't know any other way of being except waking up and creating every single day. It doesn't feel like an achievement. It feels like this is what I came to earth to do, is wake up today and spend my time here with you. And from there, I'll go to another call and create something on that call. And it's just a life of pouring ourselves into, whether it's things in our vision for impact, or whether it's in my relationship to Caitlin, or being a father to my son Sequoia. It's all they're all, quote unquote, I guess they fall in the category of achievements. But for me, it just is a path of improvement, and saying, how do I become a better father? How do I become a better leader? How do I become a better partner to Caitlin? How do I become healthier and more honoring of this physical vessel of my body? And so, anyway, to answer your question, back then, the old me, uh, I've been led by my heart, and I've been in impact driven business for 20 plus years. The difference between the old me and the new me is, back then I was compensating by hard work. And so I knew that I didn't always know exactly what I was doing. I was, back then, I look back, what I call a maverick entrepreneur, meaning I didn't have a lot of responsibility, so I could put everything on the line and run and gun. And if an idea didn't work, I'd lose everything, but I could just go sleep on a friend's couch and come up with another idea, get a job, make Ben's meat, start the next idea. But once I became a father, it changes, right? Our levels of responsibility changes. And that forced me to lose everything, such that I could finally learn. And the big transition was from what we call that maverick entrepreneur into what we call a blue zone CEO. And that is someone who's really thinking more as a CEO than an entrepreneur. And so the root of that is to simply ask for help, right? So impactful people will invest money to save time. Low impact people will invest time in order to save money. And I made that shift. I realized I didn't want to waste any more time. That time is our most valuable resource. And so I started pouring myself in, all my resources, my focus, my energy, my money, into mentorship to shrink my timelines. So that, I would say, Ranjan, is the single biggest change was I started asking for more help, and I listened. I said to Source, Universe, God, I said, look, if you send me a path, if you illuminate the path out of this mess that I've put myself in, you'll never catch me here again. I will do every single thing that you reveal. And I did that. I committed to that. And so I began to shift my energy to money. And that was another huge, huge shift. I recommend to anybody listening, if you're trying to make a contribution into the world, if you're trying to make an impact, shift your relationship to money. Understand that you're a conduit for money. You're not a dead end for money. You're a conduit, like an energy current, in your home. When you plug something in, it creates a circuit where energy flows, and that's what powers your cell phone or your television or your coffee pot. Well, you're the same way. In terms of your impact is going to be electrified by your flow of money energy. So when I began to shift all these things, it literally changed everything. And yes, now I run a 7-figure company. We're scaling to 8 figures and beyond and doing all these amazing things. The root of it was these elements.
Well, Alok, this is something really big and significant that you made a mention of, and I would want to go a little deeper to help the listeners of this podcast. Well, it's sort of become fancy now, and we hear it from everywhere about your relationship to money. But you are someone who has done that. You are someone who has experienced that, and you are someone who are creating results.
That's right.
After experiencing that shift. So I would request you to go a little more deeper and to give a deeper picture of what it looks like. When, what does it constitute of? What's the process like when somebody really wants to, change their relationship with money?
Wonderful. So the first step is just understanding that you have a relationship with money. For most people, it's not a good relationship to money. It's like a bad marriage, you sort of want them to come, but you hope that they leave, kind of thing. So, the first step is to just understand you do have a relationship to money, whether you knew it or not. So now that you're understanding, I have a relationship to money, now ask yourself, do you have a good relationship with money or a bad relationship with money? And think of it like a friend. There's a friend. Do you have a good relationship with the friend, or do you have a bad relationship with the friend, right? Is the relationship you have with this person or whatever it is it positive and nourishing in your life, or is it negative and triggering in your life, right? So I would say the first step is to just really understand, like, if money's not flowing to and through you, then there's something probably broken or needing improvement in how you relate to money. So I have a client, for example, she makes tons and tons of money, but her love life is stuck, right? And I've said to her, well, you've figured out how to create a really fabulous relationship to the energy called money. How about we start cultivating a really fabulous relationship to the energy called love, right? And so once we identify where we don't have, and what she uncovered is that, she's actually very resistant to male energy, right? And yet she really wants a partner. Wow. So we're watching her now start shifting that relationship. So I would encourage the listener to understand that, to improve your relationship to your spouse, Well, that's the same idea. You'd ask really powerful questions on how to improve my relationship to my spouse. Well, ask very powerful questions. How can I be more loving to money? Now, this is where people get a little reactive because many people have been taught the love of money is the root of all evil, right?
And I'm one of them. I was sorry interrupting. We'll get back to that,
Yeah,
but I need to share because there are many who would benefit from it. And I
yeah,
was a big devotee of Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, who was the guru of Swami Vivekananda. And I was at a very young age when going through his, books. Even when he said, shun two things in your life, women and money. And I kind of misunderstood the meaning of that. What he was actually speaking was of lust and greed and kind of that.
that's correct.
Yes. And I misunderstood that. And then I seriously worked hard to plant those ideas into at a cellular level to make sure that, I, I shun these two things.
That's right.
And then I renounced my family. I became a monk in a
That's right.
monk order of, the Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa. And then that develops a kind of an ego that, I am doing this successfully and I am a spiritual guy kind of
That's
thing.
right.
But then on the other side, it took me years to come out of that. I'm still
That's
on
right.
my way. And and then I woke up to the fact, oh my God, what has this created? And on the one side, we have, as you said, we're already born in a relationship with money, and most of us are unfortunately not born, not brought up in a proper relationship with money.
That's
and
right.
and when you work in the against that and you plant some more ideas like this, that money is evil and all these things, and probably you have double the work to do to unplant those
More.
ideas and
That's right.
to
Yeah.
experience freedom.
If I said to somebody, God would like you to experience more love, they'd say yes,
Yes.
right? If I said God wants you to experience more clean air, oh yes.
Yes.
God wants you to experience more clean drinking water. Oh yes. God wants you to experience more friendship. Oh yes. God wants you to experience more money. Oh
No.
no.
Yes.
No, God's not selective. God wants you to have a fully expressed, fully abundant life. And when we
Yes.
begin to realize that abundance is all the forms. And by the way, everyone listening who might say, well, it's easy for that guy to say, he now runs Uplift Millions. It's a multi-million dollar company. It's easy for him to say these things. I need you all to hear that I said these things and learned these things and was willing to believe the exact things I'm saying to you when I lost everything, when I had nothing. I said, well, I've got nothing. I might as well start changing my thinking, because my thinking is what got me into the predicament of having nothing. Okay. So to further break these cliches, I want to go through a demonstration here, right? Because
Sure.
if I hold this up, and I know some of your people are only listening, so I'll explain what it is. In my right hand, I have a ball made of pyrite. Okay. Pyrite is, one of the minerals in the ground. Okay. This, if I said to somebody, this was made from 13.8 billion years of stardust, they could probably agree with me, right? Like, yeah, a little weird. The guy's holding a ball that sort of looks kind of like gold and kind of like metal, but sure, I can get with it that 13.8 billion years of stardust created this thing. Well, in my left hand, I'm holding up a $20 bill. This thing was also made with 13.8 billion years of stardust. They are the same. They are just different expressions of energy and all that has ever been. They're no different. They're just forms of energy. Now, this idea used to feel like a cliche to me. I'd hear these things, oh, money's just energy. Well, you can either believe it is or you can believe it isn't. If you want to be in the camp that believes it isn't, very likely money will not flow to you. If you are open to the idea that money is simply another form of how energy is moving in the world, then there's a very powerful question you could ask yourself, which is, how do I become what I call a wealth circulator?
Fantastic. Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
How can I become someone hear this very clearly, every country, city, or community that is successful, meaning there's people don't live in misery, yeah? There's at least one wealth circulator, the person who has the superpower to accelerate the velocity of money flowing through a place, okay? If you look at a less nice neighborhood, and then 10 years later, you come back and it's a nice neighborhood, what happened? More money energy started flowing and circulating into the households of that neighborhood. Restaurants got nicer, schools got better, homes got nicer, etc. So what I say to people is, it's not about desiring to get rich. That's fine. I live in a fancy house. I drive a dream car. It's about saying, how can I become the fullest expression of a wealth circulator, meaning someone who can accelerate the movement of energy. That's the same thing that a Qigong practitioner practices in the body. It's moving energy inside the body. People like me, we just move money energy as a form of energy. I also move love energy with my family, my friends, my clients, my loved ones. Become a magical sorcerer of energy, and one of the forms is money.
And how does this, when applied, how does this wealth circulation look like for a person who's just understanding his relationship with money, and he wants to, he really wants to become a wealth circulator? So how does initially it look like?
So there's three phases. First phase is wealth generator, then there's wealth accumulator, and then there's wealth circulator, right? So the first phase would say, and this is part of what I call my infinity loop, okay? So when we understand if you imagine an infinity symbol, you're at the center where the infinity symbol overlaps with itself, okay? And then you start creating a business or a nonprofit, but for the interest of this conversation, I'll say a business, right? And then you have the courage to grow that business. Now, the key is, a lot of people say, I just want to make a lot of money for myself. And honestly, in my view, the universe doesn't quite listen to that language. So I would say to everybody, become the reason for money to flow through you. I'll give you an example. Another parts of my beingness is that I will plant 1 billion trees during my lifetime. I am that I will fund $1 billion and 0% loans for women entrepreneurs around the world. These are commitments. And if the listener listens very closely, what you'll hear me saying whenever I say that out loud is, I am communicating very clearly why money energy should flow through me. Why should I be a conduit? Why should I be a recipient and then a steward of money? So in the first phase, for those that are early in, begin to imagine the amount of circulation you desire to create, okay? So see that first. Then you've got to work on becoming a wealth generator, right? You've got to master your entrepreneurial leadership, CEO, marketing, sales, operational, all the things that actually are the tactic and strategy around moving money energy. Then you'll start accumulating money energy, and you'll start seeing it stack up in your bank account. And then you'll say, wow, here we are. Let's start creating the wealth circulation that we want to see. So at the front end, what I would say to everybody is simplification. If you desire to jumpstart this infinity loop, right? Solve the most expensive problem that you can solve for somebody else, and watch how money energy just literally starts magnetizing towards you. You want more money energy to come towards you? Solve a bigger problem for somebody else. Watch what begins to happen.
Well, the maximum, people understand about when it comes to wealth circulation, the best they think about is charity,
That's right.
tithing,
Yes.
donate,
Let's go
donate.
so much further. Let's go so much further than that. Shall we?
Yeah,
Charity is a wonderful element, right? So I plant trees through a couple different organizations. I plant about 10,000 trees a month. Uh, these are my fundamental belief, Ranjan, is that the world will go in a positive direction as the two elements, like to me, are very simple. Plant trees and empower women. Plant trees and empower women. I truly believe the world will go in a phenomenally different direction as those things occur more in the world, right? And so once we become that reason, now we start saying, okay, I can donate to plant trees. That's a beautiful thing, okay? I can donate to create 0% infinity lending loops for women entrepreneurs around the world. But that is a tiny fraction of my wealth circulation. Last year was the first year in my entire 20-year career that we circulated over $1 million to other humans. But the bulk of that came through job creation. What do people want more than charity? They want the dignity of employment. They want to be able to be honored and respected for who they are and valued for who they are, and to receive a living wage such that they can provide for their families. So I want to really tell everybody, when we think about leadership, I really encourage everybody to think about job creation. How can I become a job creator, not just such that my business will benefit only me, right? The moment and by the way, friends of mine that aren't entrepreneurs, I don't think they quite realize how much it takes to create one job for another human. It doesn't sound like, if I tell friends of mine, 9 people have jobs because of me, right? It may not sound like a lot, right? But my monthly overhead to run my company is enormous because we don't pay the cheapest rates. We pay the highest rates, right? So I would really encourage people to think about your circulation. Your ability to be a wealth circulator is so beyond philanthropy and donating, checks to charity. So beyond it.
Beautiful. And how do you differentiate the roles of being an entrepreneur and being a CEO?
So entrepreneurs are typically usually an earlier stage, right? And so, they're usually, in my business, they're typically earning under $10,000 a month. Their focus is on, I'm trying to get customers, I'm building my brand, I'm building my social media presence. But there's a very clear set of problems that an entrepreneur will be facing, right? They don't know how to communicate clearly about what they do. They don't know how to price their services. They don't know how to charge. They don't know how to market. They don't know how to book a sales call. They don't know how to handle a sales call, right? So these are typically the kind of 5 core pillars that we see in that earlier stage entrepreneur. Then what will happen, Ranjan, is that entrepreneur, if they are successful, will get so busy that they'll start burning out, right? And that was me. I went from broke in 2016. I asked God, send me as many clients as you want. I will do whatever I have to do for them. And so that led me to eventually have 22 one-on-one clients, and was running a group program and doing all the marketing, sales, bookkeeping, and everything. So there will become a moment where the entrepreneur gains enough momentum and enough success that it's time to put the CEO hat on. And that is the big leap, okay? Because when you're an entrepreneur, you really just have a glorified job, right? And then if anybody listening wants to know the litmus test for this, if you were to vanish from your business for 2 months, would the business die? If the answer is yes, very likely yes, or the business would hit a major problem, right? Then you've got a job. Okay. When you're a CEO, you can build a business where eventually you could vanish for 2 months, 3 months, and the business would still function because you moved into CEO role, visionary leader role. You're no longer wasting your time on the things that you should no longer be doing. You have a team that has expertise at everything that you don't have expertise on, and that you can start offloading, right? So CEOs value time and say, we want to leverage time. The way you leverage time is with team. And it's not easy. Like this is literally the transition where many people will fail. But if you're listening to this and you want to make a big impact, you want to make a contribution, master being an entrepreneur first, and then begin to notice when you start outgrowing it, your systems will start creaking. Things might start breaking. That's when you're going to say, time to put the CEO hat and begin to make that next level up.
Alok, well, this is going so deep, so I would like to go a little more deeper.
Yeah, let's do it.
When you speak about planting trees, I'm going back there a little.
Sure.
Speak about planting trees and empowering women. Well, you found that because you heard that calling and you responded with that. How do people even listen to that? And how do people identify such universal global problems and even aspire to solve these problems? Because, at an individual level, people really want to do something, but then they see that, oh, there might be a big guy doing that already. So who am I to do that? And what can I do? And that's where, that's where people relegate all these things to the background, and then they go back to their jobs like normal every day. So how would you help these people see the truth, connect with it, and start creating their journey?
You see, at Uplift Millions, Ranjan, we work with impact-led leaders, impact-led entrepreneurs. And so, they recognize there's something called the hopeless fallacy, right? Which is, does it really make a difference, right? If I do something, it doesn't really make a difference. And that guy over there, he's already running Tata Sustainability or whatever, Reliance, blah, 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 right? For those that are India based. And it's easy, I want to acknowledge them. It's easy to sort of either assume, who am I, or to assume they're going to take care of it, right? So I'll just keep functioning in my life.
Exactly.
So what I would say to everybody is that you came to Earth with a mission, period. You can decide whether that's true or not. You can decide whether you believe that or not. But inside, I call it a soul DNA coding. Each of us already has a coding of what our maximum impact potential is during our lifetime. It's already there. It's already been coded inside of you. But then as you became an adult, adults piled on all of their ideas of how you're supposed to live your life, right? Whether it was becoming a monk and being told, women and money are the problem, right? Those were ideas that someone put on top of you. You encoded them into your cells, and then you began to believe that that was your truth. It's not. The truth was given by the divine, already fully coded in you, doesn't need any other human to translate it. It just needs you to go within yourself. So now let's say someone says, okay, I removed all the rubble. I've found that my soul calling is to improve education. My soul calling is to improve public health. My soul calling is to improve marriages. My soul calling is to improve physical well-being. My soul calling is to improve businesses. Whatever the soul calling actually is of where your greatest expression of your DNA coding. Now the question is, who am I to go do this? Right? So the first step might be a reveal. But now humans are very good at sabotaging the reveal, right? Oh, no, no, no. Who am I to do this? I'm not like Ranjan. I'm not like Alok. I'm not like whoever. So here's what I would say to them. Number one, if not you, who? If not you, who? Okay. Stop waiting for other people to solve the problem. Just start. Take one tiny step towards solving it. Now, the other thing, I used to say this, well, rather than me, someone could go hire Tony Robbins or whoever, right? And I got one of the best pieces of advice I've ever been given, and I'm going to pass it along to all of your listeners. People will choose to work with you because it's you, not despite that it's not somebody else. I hope everybody heard that very clearly. It's because of you, of who you are, the sound of your voice, your humor, your laughter, your eye contact, your life story, your journeys, whatever that makes Ranjan, that you were a monk and now you're this person. That literally makes you completely vibrate at a different frequency than me. I haven't had that journey. So I want everyone out there, remember, no matter how quote unquote big or small you think you are, that's an opinion. What's a fact is that each of us has our own vibrational frequency that is unique to who we are. And that I've literally had people say, Alok, I could have joined Tony Robbins' program and I joined yours. And Ranjan, I'll be transparent. I said to them, why? Like, why would you do that? You know? And there are many different reasons, but it's because of who I am, my journey, my commitments. So I would say to everybody listening, if not you, then who? You waiting for someone else to do something? Don't be a victim to what is happening in the world. Be the cause, right? Most people live as the effect. Be the cause. Be the cause. Don't just receive the effect. So if you're waiting for that guy or that woman to go do it, well, now you're going to be the effect of whatever it is they do. No, I'd like every listener here, I don't care what your situation is, today, right now, after you listen to this, go create something extraordinary into the life of somebody else. It could be as simple as writing them and acknowledging them for how extraordinary they are. Just start creating. Watch what happens. It's magic.
Awesome. Alok, when I started this conversation, you were talking about your story. And I would want, for the benefit of my listeners, I would want you to tell us about when you woke up to this bigger visions of contribution at a global level. How did that happen, and how has your journey been since then?
Ranjan, I was very young. I grew up in an interracial household. So my mother was a white American. My father was first generation from India. And through that lens, I've always been a chameleon of sorts. I've always sort of fit in everywhere, sort of belonged nowhere kind of thing. In America, I was kind of always different. When I would go to India, I was always the American, right? So through that lens, my whole life, going to India from an early age, growing up in West Philadelphia, in Pennsylvania in the United States. Anybody who knows anything, West Philadelphia in the 1980s was a very, very difficult, complicated, violent place to live. And then my mother's family was from rural upstate New York, working class, hardworking, humble, not very, money wasn't a primary driving force. And so I say all this to say I witnessed inequality from my birth onwards. And I also understood from a very young age that I am supposed to be a leader. And so people would follow me on sports teams and whatever. And so Ranjan, I began to combine these things and say, like somehow the world has moved in a direction of haves and have-nots. And so that reality was very real to me from a very young age. And so then most people would say, oh, well, I don't want to be a have-not anymore. I'm going to just get rich, right? So you'll see many rags to riches stories, right? They came out of, not having very much, and they worked very hard, and they get lots of money, and then they go down in history as being very rich. Well, something in me said that doesn't quite feel right either. I don't just want a rags to riches story and just be one of those guys that became a billionaire for something, made bombs, missiles, bullets, guns, whatever, and just became rich. That didn't feel right either. So I figured there has to be some third evolution here where we can live abundantly, we can be wealthy in all forms, and we can begin to contribute to the shrinking of the have-not gap. And that is the space, Ranjan, that I've dedicated my entire career to. Not always easily, by the way. Many fall downs, splats, lost everything in the pursuit of cracking this code. So for me, it was a very early on spiritual knowingness that my superpowers that God did not give me my superpowers just for my own benefit. And then from there, it was a very circuitous journey, doing lots of things to figure out how to harness those superpowers towards that end. But I would say to anybody, if you've been listening and there's been something in you since you were, and for some people, they say it wasn't in me, Alok. It didn't happen until a couple of years ago. I say, beautiful. Thank God it happened now. You've had this awakening and are now harnessing your superpower to a collective benefit. But that's, I think, where it came from me. And then I would say the other piece is just, I didn't have language for it when I was young, Ranjan, but understanding just the power of the divine. And when you listen to spirit and you understand that there's something bigger than us at play and that we are just part of that global flow, that changed my life.
Fantastic. Alok, there is one word which again is so abstract for millions. And this word is abundance. How does one understand what abundance is? What's been your understanding of this word abundance? And how does one change one's understanding about abundance?
I read a long time ago in a book, a single line that said, "You are wealthy." Now, at the time, Ranjan, I was broke, right? Literally every credit card was maxed out. My credit score had dropped gazillion points. Bank accounts were empty. I had only 15 days between paychecks, to be able to put food on the table for my young son. And so at the time when I read this sentence in this book, I was like, I'm reading the wrong book, right? Doesn't this book know my reality, that I'm broke, that there is no money? How is this book? Yes. This author doesn't know anything, right? And then the author went on to explain, right now you're probably somewhere where clean air is flowing limitlessly through your nostrils, which you need to live. You have unlimited supply of clean air right now, do you not? How abundant you are with clean air. And then they said, you probably can go to the faucet. Now, this isn't true for everyone in India, but you can go to the faucet and you turn it on and you have water, the source of all life, flowing right through your taps. Wow, how abundant are you, right? You can go to the ocean and you can look out and you can see a limitless expression of nature and beauty and magic and wonder. Wow, how abundant are you? I say this all because I realized that I had a gap in my mind that somehow defined myself as not abundant, only because of one expression of abundance. I also was experiencing abundance of love. I would lay with my son in the one bed that we had in that one room studio, soothing him to sleep. He was 2.5, 3.5, 4 years old at the time. I was receiving an abundance of love. So when we can begin to look at our life from a lens of overflow, for me, it's how do you measure abundance? Now, some people will say, oh, Alok, that's all fine. Yeah, I have clean air and I have clean water and I have all these, I have love, but my bank account's empty. Well, are you willing to begin to talk about yourself as already abundant, even before the bank account filled? No, how could I do that? You see? So they're unwilling to change their perception, and therefore their situation doesn't change either. So for me, these things, Ranjan, that felt like cliches, they felt like platitudes, cheap anecdotes. Well, guess what? I had said to God, if you show me the path, I will pay attention to every single thing that you put in my path. Well, that book was put in my path. And so I had committed to take it seriously. And I decided I'm going to start seeing my life as abundant, not as broke. I literally stopped saying that word. I only say it for the effect of your listener. But I wasn't even broke at that time period. I had food in the fridge. I had money for rent every 2 weeks. I had electricity. I had a Wi-Fi connection from the next door neighbor. I had water in the taps, right? I had everything. So abundance, yes, you are right. It is such an abstract term. I think if you can create an identity of being a person who flows in abundance versus a person who's resistant to, right? Just like my client, she's in abundance with money, but she wasn't in abundance with love. Wow. Is one better than the other? Is she all of a sudden abundant yeah, she's rich financially, but was she rich in love? So we get to open the abundance spigot on love. What about fun? How about fun? Right? There's so many forms of abundance. Maybe create abundance in fun, laughter, joy, smiles, eye contact, gentleness, respect, communication, money, right? Sex. Why are any of these things bad things? They're not. Abundance, an abundant life. I truly believe God wants everybody to live an abundant life. And that used to sound like such a cliche to me. But I truly believe it. I don't believe God intended anybody to be poor in any regard. Love, health, money. I believe God wants everybody to be abundant. God, love, health, money, etc. So.
Absolutely. This reminds me, I think this was 2002 when I read this book, Tough Times Never Last, But Tough People Do, by Robert Skeller.
Right.
And there's a sentence in this book which gave me the same experience that you had. It said, money is an idea. Yeah. And I said, who is this guy? He says, money is an idea. Right. How can money be an idea? Right. And at that time, I was 1/100th of where I am today. And, I was so small. I was working as a receptionist at a diagnostic center for peanuts. And I just had money for this book, and it was 80 rupees, Indian rupees. So I bought it because I had this love for books. And when I was reading this book exclusively, especially was for unemployed. And it was all about how you can manage an idea and create wealth. And I said, I understood the whole book, but I didn't accept this, that how can money be an idea? Money is real. And how can it be an idea? And if this guy says that at an important juncture in the book, he means it. But it's that I'm not getting that. And then he said, how do you manifest an idea physically? And I said, okay, let me try. And I'll tell you, I was reading a few books on a different subject. And I said, okay, So I have opinions, my own opinions on this subject. Can I become an author in 12 months? So let's try, I said. And shall I tell you, I began this probably in the month of August of 2002, and March of 2003, I was an author and I was a published author. And I, I didn't believe my own work. I said, oh my God, I said 12 months, and it's not even 12 months. Yes, it took some sacrifices, it took a lot of work, but then I created that. And then people who used to pay me very small amount for what I used to give them as my service, they started paying double that, and they started paying me more. And
Yeah.
I started giving this book as a free gift to my clients.
That's
And
right.
I started, I mean, that's how, yes, it takes different levels of understanding. But what I understand is you need a willingness to be open to
That's right.
explore different meanings, to see the possibilities of different meanings. Uh,
Like
that,
here's what I love that, Ranjan. I'm sorry to interrupt. This just triggered something, right? Like people will say, I don't know how to get rich. Let's say, right? Tell me, Alok, tell me how to get rich. And they'll say, I'm struggling for this, right? And then I'll say, have you ever decided to get rich? What do you mean? Like literally, I literally say, have you ever sat down and actually decided, I commit to getting rich? Now, what most people will realize is that they'll see all the taboo, the discomfort. Am I even allowed to decide that? Doesn't make me one of those greedy people that, Ranjan mentioned that his spiritual teacher said were bad, right? And I'll say, look, if I decided that I'm going to gain 100 pounds, if I decide that, Ranjan, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to commit every single day to eating as terribly as I can so that I could get as big as possible, as fast as possible, right? Like I wouldn't just make the decision. I'd go, I want 100 pounds and I'm going to do it as fast as I can. That would be a commitment, right? Likewise, if I wanted to lose 100 pounds, it would be a commitment. I'd have to decide that I want to lose 100 pounds, right? If I want my marriage to get better, my relationship to Caitlin to get better, I have to decide first that I want that outcome. So most people realize that they actually haven't even made a decision. I will be rich. I mean, I want listeners to even hear me say that sentence. How do you feel when you hear me say that sentence? Do judgments already come up about the person who would say that sentence? Well, guess what? Once I lost everything and was broke, I no longer worried about what people would say about me. And I made the decision. I will no longer be poor. I will become wealthy, period. No discomfort. And so I would say to anybody, shed the taboo. Now, the key here is just don't turn into a jerk. Money does not make people greedy. Money does not make people evil. Money will accentuate who they already are. If you're a kind-hearted human and $1 billion flowed on you, I bet you'd build hospitals, you'd build schools, you'd do all sorts of things to make other people's lives better. Am I right? About you? You do incredible things with $1 billion, Ranjan. I know you would. Right? So it's simply saying, let your heart lead, but make the decision, if you want to call it, to be rich. That's what I did in 2016. I said, I'm done being poor. That's a decision. Now, just like if I wanted to gain or lose 100 pounds, would I commit to the actions every single day to achieve the outcome? Most people will not make the decision, I will no longer be poor, I will be rich. I am rich already. I am wealthy already. And then take the daily actions that would create the outcome. So I have a lot to say there. But anyway, Sorry, I interrupted you.
I know that was rightly timed, because what shows up for me is that people don't decide because they know that once they decide, they'll have to commit to the
That's
process.
correct.
And they do not want to be committed because
That's right.
they fear that that will take a lot of time and their effort and their energy and their focus, and
That's right.
they're committed to be lazy.
That's correct.
They're committed to be the opposite, and then they end up only wishing. Yes,
Whatever you're committed to is what your life will be.
yes, yes, and that's the meaning of who you are being.
That's it.
Yes.
If you want to be someone who disrespects this vessel, that used to be me. I used to drink alcohol, smoke cigarettes, smoke marijuana, all things to numb myself. Why? Because I saw too much as a child. So I'm not blaming myself. I'm not judging myself for those decisions. But I also knew those decisions were not treating this like a sacred vessel. That's why another piece of who I am that my body is a sacred vessel for daily miracles. That's a shift in my being that honors this body, right? Your commitments will, whatever your life is right now. So when I was broke, I was committed to being broke. I was running businesses trying to please everybody else. Oof. Guess how that worked out? Terribly. I don't know if we have time for this, but there's what I call 4 circles of contribution. Everybody wants to change the world. Yeah. But I say that the first circle is, can you provide for yourself? Second circle, you have enough cash flow that you can provide for yourself and your family. Third circle, you have enough cash flow that you can provide for yourself and your family and your community. Fourth circle, you have enough cash flow that you can provide for yourself, your family, your community, and now you can start changing the world. So many people think they're in circle number 4. And I'm like, you're barely providing for yourself and your family. Be in circle 2. That's where you are. Master the cash flow. That's going to take care of that. Then go to the next level. Then go to the next level.
Fantastic. That's how I take my clients through my coaching journey. We start at self, and then we start at the social self, and then we go to the spiritual self.
Woo!
Unless you understand who the self is, you probably cannot serve the social self.
That's right.
And probably that's when you think of your spiritual self.
Beautiful.
That's how you expand and grow inside out.
So beautiful. So beautiful.
Alok, very quickly, how did this decision shift your activities? How is your life different after this?
Once I made the decision that 2016 to go from losing everything to creating everything, many things changed. I changed who I spend my time with, changed who I surround myself with. I changed how I treat my body. I changed how I value my energy levels. I changed the services that I'm providing out into the world. I changed how I run my business. It's no longer a people pleaser business, right? I understand that like on an airplane, I have to put my oxygen mask on first before you can help other people. And that's very difficult. For social entrepreneurs, social impact leaders, they want to help everybody else. And they think that helping themselves is somehow greedy, egotistical, self-centered. I fundamentally believe after losing everything that you have to put yourself first if you want to make your biggest impact to others. That was like the day of reckoning, but once you've lost everything, you're willing to question all the things. I realized that the old way of thinking didn't work. So might as well try on some new ways of thinking. So I would say the biggest things: changed who I surrounded myself, changed how I run my business, changed my identity, evolved my identity, shed old layers of identity, and just became a new person. The key here is that my heart didn't change. My commitment from my heart and my soul has always been the same. it was just shedding old 3D elements of who I was being. I'll give you an expression of that. When I ran my sustainable clothing company, right? Organic, fair trade, living wage jobs, no poisons in the dyes, right? Well, you can imagine it's more expensive to produce clothing that way, right? But people said to me, don't be one of those organic clothing brands that's only for rich people. So what did I attempt to do? I wanted to please them. So I lowered the price of our clothing to try to compete with Walmart and Target, right? So that more cost-conscious shoppers could shop here. But just understand, imagine, how did that play out? I'm creating using the most expensive commitments in the creation process to do things ethically in alignment with the universe, but I'm attempting to charge the same as the old world way of doing it, sweatshop labor, poison cottons. It's not going to work. I was trying to please everybody. You can't do it. You got to figure out who you're for, then focus on serving them at a very high rate. One last idea I'll share with everybody. Money follows value. Money follows value. Value is created by solving a problem for somebody else, okay? Sales and marketing are simply the ability to communicate the problem that you solve that creates value. When you do that, money flows towards you with ease. So solve the highest value problems that you can solve for somebody else and communicate effectively about that, and money energy will just flow right towards you.
That's very, very powerful. Very powerful. And it was the whole session, the whole conversation was a wealth in itself, a wealth of wisdom, a wealth of experience, a wealth of who you have been and who you are being. And I would, on the last 30 seconds, I would want you to tell us what this book is about, this you have written, Maximum Impact Potential, so that our audience can get the benefit of understanding of what this book is about, and they would love to read this book.
Thank you. Your Maximum Impact Potential, it's a roadmap. It's a combination of stories that I've written, stories about my life, but don't listen to it about me. The book's about you, the listener. Make everything in that book about you. Listen to every story, every anecdote, and then every mechanism and tool. But it's a book that's intended to shift how you're thinking, that shifts your being, that will shift your amount of impact that you create. And ideally, the book will put you on track to creating your maximum contribution out into the world during your lifetime. And so it's really my homage to greatness, but greatness as defined through a lens of impact and contribution.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Alok. Thank you so much. And I'm sure this was so big, and this is going to add a lot of abundance and a lot of prosperity to everyone who watches this. And I'm sure the Indian audience is going to enjoy this. And it was a great session in itself from you.
You know, highly successful people are able to listen, and they don't listen for every word that's said. They listen for the singular idea that, if implemented into their life, would change everything. So I encourage everybody, listen to everything that we've shared today about yourself, and ask yourself, what was that one thing of all the things they covered that if I brought this into my life, it would change everything? Because there are many in this conversation, from Ranjan and from myself.
Absolutely true. You know, I heard it about a couple of years ago. It's not about reading 100 different books. It's about, if you get impact is created by reading one book 100 times and then implementing it. And you have the result. So it's not about information. It's about impact.
That's right.
Thank you so much, Alok. Love you so much. That
Love you
was
so
a
much. Thank
beautiful,
you so much for
beautiful,
having me,
beautiful
Ranjan.
conversation. Love you, Alok. Thank you
Totally
so much.
fabulous. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.